I will say a few words about the Capital Market Union Action Plan, which the Commission adopted a few months ago, and of course I will also finish, as it is part of it. I will finish with a few key messages about this mysterious call for evidence that we launched with the action plan. So, first of all, let me stress a few key messages about the action plan itself. I mean, we see this action plan as a pragmatic, bottom-up approach, which contains 33 actions of very different natures, from legislation to studies to explorations, promotions. It is not another wave of legislative rules which is looming behind this action plan. There are a few of them, of course, but they are, it is fair to say, they are in the minority of instruments which are described and promoted in this action plan. Nevertheless, I think it would be a mistake to underestimate the importance of this action plan. It would be unfair, unjust, to measure the importance of an action plan like this one, just by the number of binding rules that it contains. It should not be, if you want, undermined. It is a very flagship, if you want, of this Commission, of my Commissioner, Lord Hill. It is fully part of a larger roadmap, a larger design that this Commission has put forward with the 10 priorities of Jean-Claude Juncker. If you look at these 10 priorities, the number one priority, it's jobs, growth, and investment. And this action plan, the CMU, is seen by the Commission as one of the key drivers to fulfill this objective. Not, of course, in isolation, not only, not alone. There's also, of course, the famous investment plan for Europe with the big fund of 300 billion euros that has been set up. But the action plan plays its role in various ways. That being said, it is an action plan. I mean, you cannot, in our view, you cannot legislate the creation of a market. You cannot legislate the appetite for market players to take initiatives, to launch products, to unite together, to put together their energy. We see ourselves as a driver, as a facilitator, as a promoter, and we believe that these actions, even when all they are together, because of course it's a package, even when all they are together, will create an ecosystem which should be conducive to the creation of a more significant capital market in Europe. Because currently, I think we all make the same starting point analysis, which is that our capital market in Europe, with the exceptions of a few national ones, is certainly no match to that of the US. I mean, if you consider the size of our equity market, half the size of the US, the size of our debt market, 1/3 of the size of the US, the size of our venture capital markets, and the size of the funds, it's not very significant compared with the US. And more importantly, if you look at how our SMEs obtain their funding, they obtain it 5 times more via capital markets in the US than in Europe. But we think there is no determinism. We think there is no fatalité to this. I mean, we should all do something about it. And we are late. I mean, this capital markets should have been created when Europe was created 50 years ago. So we are late, but I mean, better late than never. It's not because all this will be a long-term project that we should not start now, rolling up our sleeves all together and do something about that. When I say together, of course, it means all markets, all stakeholders, regulators, national and European, politicians, market makers, companies, intermediaries, all will play a role and all will find in our action plan some measures which are directed towards them. And this is what I think is new in this action plan. There is food for everyone. There is initiatives for all the stakeholders. But they have to be, if you want, done together, and they have to be backed at the highest level. It is very reassuring for the Commission to see the warm welcome that has been given to our action plan. People find it sensible, well done, to the point, but of course, now all this has to be fleshed out. I mean, an action plan in itself is just paper. I mean, we have to give it breath and to give it life. So this action plan, in our view, is a prism against which one will measure in future what we propose, what we design at EU level. What we do will have to be CMU compatible. What we do will have to be jobs, growth, and investment compatible. And this is a certain change of mind, of state of mind, if you want, in the Commission. And it is very normal that in the recent past, the stress was placed much more on stability, fixing the problems which cropped up during the crisis. The crisis is not over, and the stability remains a concern for the Commission. But we are moving on. We are moving on to this jobs, growth, and investment headline, which is that of the Commission, of the Santerre Commission. So we know the limits of our exercise. We know that, as I said before, with all the best action plans in the world and the best instruments in the world, I mean, you don't make miracles. There is certainly also more cultural gaps to be addressed, and that will not be addressed with action plans. It's, again, a long-term plan, a long-term design. It is fair to say, and no offense to anyone, that in Europe, our culture is more deposit-based, a deposit culture than an investment culture. I mean, this is a fact. It is a fact, and which is reflected in the way we fund our economy and in the way we fund our firms. But again, this is, I mean, this is not because it has been like that for a long time that it should remain like this. And I think we should all, as I said before, roll up our sleeves and do something. So, if you want, this action plan is the start of a certain sort of rebellion, which the Commission wants to be, at the forefront of. But we should not be the only ones to hold the flag of this rebellion. I mean, everyone here and outside should be with us on this. What are the next steps? Next steps, plenty of things which are already on the table. I mean, with the action plan, we proposed a regulation on titrisation, on securitization, which is progressing at full speed under the Luxembourg presidency. Unfortunately, the Parliament hasn't really started working on it, but we hope that once they start working on it, it will also go pretty fast. But for the moment, they haven't even appointed a rapporteur. We adopted a proposal to revisit the regime of prospectuses to make them much more friendly to SMEs in particular, to lighten the load, if you want. I mean, it is totally bizarre that the cost of a prospectus is around 8% of the level of funds that you want to raise. This is far too much. So we've tried in this new proposal, which we want to, of course, see adopted at full speed. That's what of the objectives. We also want to do something about what Mr. Ophel called a certain debt versus equity bias. We think this is absolutely obvious, and this is a problem. And there are certainly tax measures which can be designed to address that. And this is, again, what we are trying to do in 2016. We are also to see whether the calibrations which one finds in EU rules, but which were done with another objective in mind a few years ago, Solvency II, for example, we are also going to check whether these calibrations are still, if you want, conducive to proper promotion of the economy by insurance company, and certainly when they cover infrastructure risks. We believe that the calibrations are not right and they should be modified. We are going also to take a look at the capital requirements in the CRR and the CRD to see also whether they are right. Again, with this new prism of ours in mind, we're going to launch a green paper on retail financial services. We are going to revisit the regulations of venture capital and social entrepreneur funds, which again, we believe have been done not very long time ago, but maybe with another logic in mind, and we think that they are taking up, could be facilitated by changing a bit the access conditions for these funds. We also are going to revisit, or maybe to come up with new insolvency, business insolvency rules. That will not be easy, as you can imagine, because I mean, they are the reflect of our civil laws, of hundreds of economic and social traditions. So, but we'll take a go at it, because we've been told during our consultation that this is an issue, and we take this very seriously. We're also going to have another go at the Securities Law Directive. And again, for the same reasons, we've been told the diversity of regimes as to the rules on securities property differ from one country to the other. And that's a problem. That's a problem. So you see, all these are plaques, are individual instruments. I'm not saying the journey will be an easy one, but I think with this action plan, we give you the direction of travel. I finish with one thing, the call for evidence. It is quite inédit in our history. We are actually asking you to tell us what you believe is the impact, cumulative and cross impact of the rules that we've put in place, even of the rules that we've just put in place, even if some of them are not even in force. We think you certainly have important things to transmit to us about their impact on the ground. What we are going to do with all these responses, which should reach us by beginning of January, is of course a matter of a lot of speculation. It is, I think, honest of mine to stress that we're not going to proceed to a major overhaul of the rules we've just put in place. This is not reasonable, not sensible, and don't expect that. But we are going to take a careful look at all the answers, see where adjustments need to be done with the jobs, growth, and investment prism in mind, and we'll do it with a very open mind, with no prejudice, no preconceived ideas. We'll do it seriously with all the assistance and help required to do it well, and one can expect that around June there will be, let's say, communications from the Commission on the outcome of this exercise. Of course, I can come back to that later if you so wish.